Okay, welcome everyone to the June 22nd MicroProfile live Hangout. A link to the minutes is in the chat. If someone can maybe paste it for some of the more recent joinees, that would be awesome. Please click on the link and add your name to the list of meeting attendees. It is everyone's shared responsibility to take notes, and this meeting is being recorded along with the chat, and both will be uploaded to YouTube after the call. Okay, so let's see, I don't think I missed anything. Let's see, Edwin, let's go to the 4.1 status.
Yes, the most fun things first, right? Yeah, so the PR is ready for. What was that? Oh.
Someone might need to go on mute.
Over by the latch.
Oh, so that's not okay. So yeah, so the PR is ready for the final changes of MicroProfile 4.1. So you can review that if you like.
Sorry, Edwin. Sorry, we're not sharing the screen yet.
Yep, that's my bad.
So sorry about this. Go ahead. If you were thinking we were
share the
seeing
screen
you
here
and
real quick.
the work, no.
Yeah, shall I start over or just continue? I don't know what happened, but
You can share if you want to share the screen. I think John can do that as well, but we're not seeing anything you're talking about.
John's working.
Yeah, that's let me do that. I apologize here. Give me just a second, find it. I knew I forgot something.
And there are many of us here to collaborate.
You nailed the smile on the photo. I was really impressed. It was just boom, magic.
Oh, that's weird. Let me try this. I'm not sure if this is the right one. Okay, does everyone see the screen?
yes.
Yep.
Yeah, the preview is completely dark. Okay, anyway, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so again the MicroProfile 4.1 final PR is ready for review. It has for the final release only the RC mentions are being removed. So the RC2 was already containing the textual changes regards to the alignment with Jakarta E8, and that was approved. So it's now yeah. And if I merge this one, then the MicroProfile 4.1 can be released as a final version. The only thing that's outstanding is the dependency, that's MicroProfile Health 3.1. If I build it right now without the staging augmenter, then the build will fail because the 3.1 has not been officially released yet. So the question is, can I build 4.1, release 4.1, and then start the release review build before MicroProfile 3.1 has been released? Because technically we can do that. We have the staging augmenter, we can make a build and kind of have the builds run simultaneously. But I'm not sure if the Eclipse Foundation also thinks so, because they are also going to build the project and it will fail on their computer because they don't use augmented probably. So is the conclusion that we have to wait for 3.1 to be released so that I can properly build 4.1 and then initiate the release review build?
You don't need to. Yeah, I don't think that email builds the project. They check different things because we pass this with MicroProfile 4.0 with staging augmenter. However, help ballot ends tomorrow, so I think we should wait.
Okay. The reason why I say that is in the communication I have with in the GitHub ticket, they mentioned they tried to build the project, but it failed somehow. So that's why I assume that they could try again.
We should just give them the, you can put these repos in your in your Maven 2 settings, I believe,
Yeah.
there's a way to put the additional repos there. So, give them the settings, and they should be able to build it if they want to.
Yeah, but if are they okay with the process being
Well, I don't
done
think
like
they
that?
have to determine
Yeah.
how we build our software, right? They just need to know the
That-
instructions and something they can do reasonably.
Yeah, we did that. We did this for the spec release on the 4.0, so it's fine. So basically, you stage parallel in parallel. We
Yeah.
do have the infrastructure for doing so. However, as Martin is saying, the ballot will end for MicroProfile Health tomorrow. So in that case, maybe it's kind of tomorrow will MicroProfile Health 3.1 will be pushed to Maven Central. And then it's kind of that'll be all done. So it's not like waiting for days.
No, but if it's going to be pushed to central, then it will take maybe a day before it ends up there. If I recall correctly,
Should be
it
able to-
should mean that I can release MicroProfile for that one on Thursday and then send out the ballot.
Yeah,
If everybody can vote on that before or just after 7 days, then I can close the ballot and conclude the ballot. And then we are still within the time frame of 7 July, where the EMO is going to finish with the review process.
So
I think
as in,
that
usually it takes around like a few hours, hour or two, to get stuff released to Central, at least in my
Yeah.
experience. However, if we start to ballot for Umbrella today or tomorrow, it really doesn't matter because we have exactly 2 weeks until July 7th. So
Yes.
you will need to vote a little bit sooner, I guess.
Yeah,
So
there's a sync to Maven Central like every 15 minutes. Doesn't mean that the staging repo is gonna get into the queue immediately, but
Yeah.
Maven Central is updated like literally all day.
so one of the missing parts we have is before we put to the ballot is about compatible implementations. We need to, because the 4.1 is no longer marketing release, we need to get a runtime to be able to claim we're saying, okay, you passed all of the TCKs, for these 8 MicroProfile specifications. We need to get that done before going to the ballot, because you need to create that the compatible implementation issue on the MicroProfile GitHub. So
Yeah.
now the question is which runtime do we want to use to certify against 4.1 so that we can push 4.1 out?
Now, you know that you can have multiple
Yes.
compatible implementations. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So we could have a multiple.
Yeah.
So all we need is one. So
Yeah,
is there
we-
someone, is there someone or more than one going to release a 4.1 compatible implementation?
I will have a look at the Open Liberty, I will see which build the can use and to get to get past all of the TCKs. But I think it's good to have a multiple runtime and volunteer to see which one get there first or both.
Do we have we zeroed on a date? We said sometime in July, but did we zero on a date or not? I haven't seen it in the minutes for the technical call.
I think as soon as possible, we're just pushing a win. Is we can.
Okay,
So if I
there's no-
recall correctly, one of the gating factors, right, is the EMO vote, not
Yeah.
vote, but review. And that is the second Wednesday? Sorry, I can't remember first, third, or second,
First
fourth.
and third, and it's
Okay, sorry,
July
second,
7th.
fourth is
Correct,
street
yeah.
sweeping days for my car. So, so first and third. Okay,
July.
so that was July 7th, right? I think I heard.
Yeah.
So now that doesn't mean that it's been released. It means that assuming we get the okay from the EMO, then that kind of addresses that requirement. It sounds like the gating factor right now is a compatible implementation.
But yeah, but I thought I understood that I have to release a final version of MP 4.1 before I can hand it over to the EMO as part of the review process, because
Yeah, you can stage it. You basically you can stage it and stage it first, and the next thing is getting EMO.
Yeah, stage it, send out
Yeah.
the ballot, tell EMO to find that's the process exactly. But then I have to stage it first, and then I have to make a final release first. So.
Well, the staging is the staging of the final release, right? Once the ballot's over, then we would push those out of staging into Maven Central.
Yeah. But yeah, so
has the issue with staging repos timing out been addressed? We're okay there now? We're not going to find our staged bits being deleted?
We got 30 days.
Yeah.
30 days, thank you.
Now is now is the kind of they keep it for at least 4 weeks.
Okay.
So the question now is if we can start the ballot without the compatible implementation for the umbrella, or will this add some additional overhead and we will miss the first Wednesday?
I don't think you can start a ballot without a compatible implementation.
Correct.
okay.
So so I will like take to do to see how soon we can get Open Liberty to claim the compatible implementation. And I encourage some other runtime also volunteer and to do the similar thing instead of just waiting for one.
Is then July 7th still reachable? Or should I ask EMO already to save also the next slot?
Well, I can talk on the Wildfly and the Quarkus side, but I don't see the roadmaps of either Quarkus or Wildfly lining up with the timeline that we have for this release right now. Especially because we're doing like a Quarkus 2 release. It's gonna be like the first major version on the 2 branch. Yeah, I'm not gonna go into details of why we're doing it too, but basically we already really like in a hardening phase, and we don't want to push any new stuff into the 2 branch unless like really critical fixes. And so that will take us into the next Quarkus release we'll do, which probably gonna be in a month or so. But I'm unsure, especially because now with the holiday period, things are becoming a little bit slow.
Yeah, and Ayara has also 4.1 ready, except for a few tests, but it will not be released before the end of, before the second half of July.
And I think we talked about in the past, like maybe is a way. It's for these releases. It's kind of the basically this is releases like approve. We can release the spec. And instead of like having this formal release, I don't think it's any implementation willing to do this formal release because this is not ready yet. Like the final one was not pushed out. So it's again, it's kind of, I still kind of think if we have kind of the release, let it to be like a snapshot release or some other release, as long as the kind of it can be pushed somewhere, not to be deleted, and prove it can pass all the TTKs. And in this case, I think we can go ahead to release our spec. And then after being released, etc., I think there's more compatible implementations come in, and etc. I think it's kind of, we should think about the different releases instead of like a formal GA or something like that.
I definitely agree with you, Emily. I mean, we've done that with Jakarta EE, and so I think that's a fine way to go.
We can do
Yeah.
a milestone, when this conversation came up over the list about, the chicken and the egg, and well, how do we get the spec out if there's no server and the server wants the final version of the spec, and how do we break that? We basically said, well, we can do a milestone or an RC or some other designation of the release and just kick it out the door. It's only final releases that have to go through the spec process. So
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. And in this case, I think open door for more candidate. And then I definitely will look at Liberty how soon we can get all the TCK result and out approval passed or TCKs. I think yeah, I will mark that to do, and I will yeah.
do we want to agree on a designation like RC1, something that we all mutually understand the APIs won't change, so that way if you built your product with RC1, it should be the same as the final unless something very, very extenuous happens?
Actually, from Open Liberty point of view, I will just go to, for example, daily build, and then I will push the daily build somewhere and not to be deleted, and during the voting period. So that's kind of it's obviously it will consume all the MicroProfile helps 3.1 and prove with passed all the TCKs and etc. So this is more feasible, and I can get a build a lot sooner.
Oh, I thought you were talking about doing sorry, just
Sorry, David.
I thought you were
So
doing.
to answer your question, basically we are doing that what you described for individual component specs already. So the last RC is basically the same as the final version. So we are not pushing anything between the last RC and the final tech.
Okay, so we're doing that already. That's great. So sounds like you were saying, Emily, though, that instead of doing a release of the compatible implementation, it would be some other kind of release.
Yes, so I'm talking about have a build actually is used MicroProfile Health 3.1-RC3, and then together with other all the specs, config and etc. is included in the photo 1. So in this build, and then prove is passed all of the TCKs we require, and that's a good is a good proof. It means this is good release, and then we push the release out, and then it's a compatible implementation. Like you can all the runtime can go ahead to claim compatible implementation with the final build and etc.
Yeah, this is
Is there a
great, but this
formal
is
definition of compatible implementation out there
Well,
as it relates to specs?
yeah,
The compatible implementation definition in the already documented in the MicroProfile photo 1 spec. So means passed all these 8 MicroProfile.
Well, that's the MicroProfile stack. But what I mean by it is from like an EFSP perspective.
yeah, it has to be
Right.
open source, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of the maturity, how do I say this? At least having an RC or something like that of a compatible implementation, like taking a daily build, right? I think, Emily, that's what you were advocating,
Yeah,
taking a daily build.
Yes.
Well, no, not a daily build, because you need something that will stick around forever.
Yeah, so basically it's a kind of you take a build and then push it somewhere in the repository, and basically it's a kind of the not to be deleted.
Well, it's not just the build; it's the sources. So first of all,
Yeah, and always the source.
let me complete the statement. So the requirement is that the compatible implementation has to be open source, and the reason that exists is so that if there's ever a question on how could this test ever have been passed, we have something to look at, guaranteed. Because maybe the next 5 implementations that come after are closed sourced, and that might be our only one that we can actually look at. So that's why we do not allow closed source implementations to be part of the vote I mean, they can be there, but they can't prove the TCK can be passed because nobody can look at them or build them, specifically build them and run them to determine how the heck was this test ever passed.
Right.
And so in the requirements of open source, the OSI says that there must be an accompanied source distribution that is in a preferred format that developers can easily build. Well, it doesn't say easily, it says the preferred format for developers, meaning you can't have like, if we chucked out a source zip that was all filled with snapshots and all those snapshots are gone 6 months from now, right? Because there's like a dependency on 5 other libraries and those things, we're all at snapshot level and no one knows what source was used when the first one was built. That doesn't pass the requirements of open source because nobody can actually build that software and make a derivative product, right? So something to qualify as open source has to have a source zip primarily. It's not the binary that's the big. You need to have a source zip that can build that exact binary and it can't decay quickly over, you know what I mean? It's got to last.
I think because it's a requirement is open source, once you have a commit and you can take that snapshot and then build again, so you will be able to get a source, right? So as long as you have all the commit information.
Yeah, I mean, the source has to be available in a well-known location. So, you know, if we're putting up a snapshot binary, then it's got to be the source, the true source has to be available. And if there are any snapshots in the snapshot build, right? Like if Open Liberty depends on, you know, foo library and foo library's a snapshot, then we need the commit for foo library that we would need the source for foo library.
Yeah.
It's recursive. We need the source for everything, right?
Yeah. To make a suggestion, also regarding time, what if I just wait for Health 3.1 to release, then I will release MP 4.1 to staging, then I will get back to Emily for the CCR and how to handle that, and maybe how the discussion we just now are having, how to handle these kind of CCR implementations and compatible implementations. Is that a topic for the technical call next week? Maybe better than.
Can we start? Let me interject here because I think this is great. Can we start these threads in the mailing list, in the community mailing list?
Thread has been going on in the mailing list for very long.
But right now it's like totally dead because we have not used it in a while, and we can restart it again. That's what I mean.
Well, I mean,
Well, else is gonna close tomorrow. So, or if Tommy Try votes in the meanwhile, it's gonna close until Tommy Try votes because that's the only vote missing. So we're not gonna gain much time if you're waiting for the health vote because that's pretty much done.
Yeah, the open issue is, can a non-reproducible build be used for a release vote? I say no. The build has to be reproducible.
That was my question. Thank you.
When you say the build has to be reproducible, I think is in the past we discussed is like for example, you have like an open source project, and then is you take the commit ID. Basically, you say, okay, this is a commit ID, and then is kind of you could use like that time without commit and etc. and check out the source, right, to rebuild it.
Not exactly, because if it has a snapshot in size, then the commit hash is not going to do anything for you because the snapshots may not be available anymore.
Exactly.
So I still don't understand like the build has to be kind of the reproducible. The thing is, if nobody trying to claim the like the compatible implementation and etc., and this kind of defeat the purpose of the kind of release the photo one.
Well, what David is saying is if you require, you have to be able to rebuild everything from scratch from whatever compatible implementation you use for the 4.1 release, right? So if it is something that only relies on Maven Central, that's fine because Maven Central is always there. But if you have any kind of other dependencies that you're not able to retrieve, right? So for instance, if you release some sort of version of Open Liberty, I should be able to check it out on my box and should be able to build it, or at least be able to find any other snapshots and build them myself, and have the final artifact as you use to pass the certification, right? But if that's not possible, and that's what they've been saying, then we don't have any compatible implementation to use, or at least the compatible implementation has to fulfill those requirements.
So how does the Jakarta EE the how do they the compatible implementation and etc. There's many compatible implementations. How
Well,
did
Jakarta EE has something a little more easy for them, which is they have a reference implementation, which is Glassfish, that lives next to the APIs, and which we
We don't
don't.
have a
No.
reference implementation, but
no, we
there
don't
have been milestone releases, right? So you don't have to do a GA. You can do any, it's not so
So-
impossibly difficult to do quote unquote a release, just like call it anything you want.
So are you saying, okay, so is you do a milestone release, do you also require this milestone release need to be pushed to Maven Central?
Doesn't it?
Not exactly, just need to be a repository, or at least like a place that's not going to go away, where you can download the source from and build it. So it can be like a zip file on a web page, for instance.
So what's the difference between the milestone release and daily build? So for me, it's kind of the
If
yeah,
you
you
can
call it
guarantee that the daily build, if you can guarantee that the daily build is able to be built as well,
10
I
years from
think,
now.
yeah,
Exactly.
usually I think the issue here is how people perceive the daily build. So people still perceive the daily build as something like just a snapshot that has dependencies to other snapshots, right?
Oh, I see. So
That's what people perceive as a daily build. That's something that's unstable, that may build, or actually it builds today, but it may not build tomorrow. So that's how I think that's like a definition issue, or like people are perceiving the daily build. Now, if your daily build is actually something that you're able to build in 10 years from now, then that's fine.
yeah, that's what my kind of the question. As long as your daily build kind of have the same standard as a snapshot, so that's good enough.
Well, don't call it daily build then. Just call it like a
Yeah,
build.
like a
Okay,
build.
so
It's a build.
if you're able to make a build that you're able to provide the source, and that source is able to be built in 10 years, 20 years from now, just with the Maven Central dependencies, then it's fine in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you have to have, what I would recommend if you want to go the cheap, the quick, low bar approach, when you're doing your build, create a source jar or source zip at the same time of that exact thing. Make sure both of them live for a very, very long period of time, and that the source jar isn't also filled with snapshots, right? Because if the source of the components you're relying on isn't also known, then it doesn't really help. Is that clear?
I'm not sure whether we can also the kind of can do this kind of source jar and etc. I think in this case probably it's better for other runtime or also volunteer to do the similar thing, because I'm not sure that the infrastructure and etc. And because this will be pushed to somewhere permanent and then live there for a long time. This is another thing, is why do we want to make it live it for a long time? Is this kind of, could we kind of just say, okay, if we use Open Liberty to like pass release is 4.1, and then Open Liberty has a 21.008 final release and passed the all the TCKs, and in that case we can delete the like the short-lived kind of compatible implementation and replace with kind of more permanent. In that case, you don't need
can't
to
delete it. You can't delete it ever. Once that thing's getting used, you can't use to make the vote final. You can't delete it.
right. So that's the kind of the other thing.
And in which case, if the desire is to delete it and we don't actually want the market to use it, why are we doing the release? Why don't we just wait?
Yeah,
So,
I get really
no.
worried about with a daily release it being perceived as, okay, we just cut a release. You know, the idea is to prove it works, that we did a one-off to say, see, it works, and then maybe it doesn't work later, right? It might set a bad precedent.
Well,
Right.
and there's a marketing angle to this, right? When we announce the release, it's with the intent to have the world come and use it. So if there isn't actually anything that we want the world to use, then we should just wait.
So I haven't quite get my point across. So what I mean is replace. Basically, is previously used the kind of snapshot release, for example, to release out, and then later on you have a kind of another formal version going to be in the Maven Central, and then like replace that snapshot. Is that kind of the like something feasible to do? In
No,
this case,
because
like,
you don't replace stuff in Maven Central, right? So when you push something to Maven Central, they're still there forever as well.
no, I know it's for this snapshot and etc. It's no requirement to be in the Maven Central. It could be in the kind of the private repository, not private repository.
It
For
needs to be
example,
public,
IBM,
but
IBM.
what David is saying is, and I agree with him, is you're voting on something, right? So that's what you vote. That's what you say that it was valid, right? So you cannot delete something that you vote on, right? Because then that vote doesn't mean anything anymore. So the thing that you actually vote to pass doesn't exist anymore. So it didn't pass, right?
So
Does that make sense?
It's a kind of the angle I'm trying to do is kind of look at like this snapshot is kept forever in one particular repository. So is there any way to like replace it by another thing?
But why do you want to replace it?
You can
So
add,
basically
you
it's
can add, but you can't replace. Is that clear?
yeah,
Add, but you
it's
can't
clear,
replace.
but I'm trying to.
But give me a second. But why do you want to replace? I mean, if it's working, why do you want to replace it?
Because there hasn't got much value in it, because that one is kind of like things moved on.
Yeah, but I mean that's what happened with new versions on Maven Central every day, and you don't delete all the other jars that are over there. So I don't see a reason why you should delete that. I mean, if it passes on, people are moving on, they just start using the new version, and that will stay over there. I don't see like a big deal. Why should we delete it?
Yeah, that's true if it's in Maven Central. But if you manage your own repository, gradually it's kind of all filled up.
Well, but what's the issue? It's like a disk issue size. It's gonna take you like a lot of disk issue, and that's what you want to delete it. I mean, if
well, let's zoom out just a bit. So the point of doing a release, we have to not see the release as just this technical thing we got to outsmart. When we're doing a release, we have our program plan, we have marketing initiatives, we have Twitter things that go out. We draw, you know, we do make a big hoorah rah when we do a release, or we do if we're good at it, at least, right? So the goal of the release is to say to the industry, to the market, this is done, come use it. We're gonna work together to write tweets and promote it and say it's out there, right? But if there isn't actually any servers that we want people to be using, because we've kind of, you know, just kind of like pushed something that we don't actually want to stand by, even for people to really use, then we should just wait until there is something there that we actually are happy with people using. Right? It doesn't actually matter if we're talking about the technical details of, can I get this build to go this way? Does it live in Maven Central or not? Ultimately, it's, are we going to promote? We have to have something we're willing to promote to at least some extent and have people actually use.
Right. I think we had enough conversation on that. So it's back to the open liberty as a possible compatible implementation. I think is the, you know, with this conversation, I think maybe it's better to use open liberty beta. So that will be available in July, at the beginning of the July.
But you understand that you want like a real application server or runtime to release basically release candidate with some RC versions of the specification. I can definitely say that at least in Wi-Fi this is not possible.
Yeah, it's a RC. Yeah, it's a RC, and also I think it's with a conversation and etc. There need to be a kind of long-lived.
But it's a different scope, because if I'm releasing a small RI component, which is basically a library, I can cut a RC basically as a daily build. You can look at it like this. I can include an RC of the spec. I don't really care about that because I will release a final version of the library, and that will get included in the alpha beta releases of the application server. But I don't want to pull RC versions of the spec to the application server, not even for beta.
Before we go any farther, can we agree that this became a release call and we are 37 minutes into a conversation, and if we're okay with this, we can continue, but otherwise we need to acknowledge that this call is not to be hijacked by any topic at all. That there were
hijacked. It's right there in the top of the agenda.
It is, but we're talking, and it's super important discussion, but can we agree that we are okay to continue talking about the release? I would like to hear from other voices so that we can continue and be totally relaxed on this.
I think we need to continue. I mean, we need to fix this issue, right?
Yeah.
Even if it is we got into a point, and for me, I'm getting into the impression that we probably need to collect back and go to our runtimes and try to come up with feasible dates and bring it up here, because it seems that no one is ready to do an actual release of something, and that's the first issue. The second one, as Martin was saying, like doing application server releases with RC versions is not as trivial as doing like a single library release as an RC. So, and that's more technical stuff that we need to figure out as well. But we can leave that discussion to another time.
I think
So
for the second, sorry.
Does this also mean then that we're not going to do an MP 4.1 release to staging yet because we can't vote?
Yeah,
We don't have an implementation.
We should wait until we have something.
Yeah. So I think for the second thing, what Roberto said, that depends on the runtime. So it's some runtime, I mean, doesn't want to pull in the non-final. I mean, some runtime are fine to pull in the final or to pull in the RC. Since the like health, I mean, for this one, like the health RC3 is the same as the final. I don't see it's a bigger problem there.
Yeah, so
But,
yeah, so that's an unfortunate development, but yeah. Okay, so then I will continue with the 4.1 release and check with Martin when health finishes, stuff like that. I will tell Emo that 7th July is not feasible for us, that we cannot release before that date, and yeah, maybe propose a new date or so. But I will see what happens. And then in the meantime, I will check with Emily about how we are going to resolve the CCR. With the implementation.
Yeah.
I will. Sorry.
Finish.
I will find out the beta schedule and then come up with a more definite date.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, it sounds like there was a couple implementations that might be ready in some released form, beta, alpha, whatever, in July or soon after. So Rudy, you mentioned, Pyara might be ready to go later in July. So, basically, if everyone's good, if there's a couple options, we can plan around them.
However, we normally do not release with RC versions of specifications or a platform like MicroProfile, but I can check internally.
Well, it wouldn't be an RC release of a specification if we knew there was going to be a compatible implementation. Right. So we could, if we knew, for example, the spec is out there, right? 4.1. So if we knew, for example, if Pyro was ready to do a build, then we could hold a vote, not hold a vote, but execute a vote.
Stage
the
binary.
Yeah, and stage the repo.
Yeah, but as we have discussed, normally we don't build something that needs to be kept forever, which is based on NRC.
Yeah, this is the kind of conversation we had earlier.
All right, yeah. This is gonna.
My recommendation there is that the same day in the same action, we stage the final binary, and at the same time immediately release an RC of some number so that there's a guarantee to everybody involved the RC is the exact same code as the coming final, and it's basically just only different by the extension. And hopefully that gives people some confidence. But
so in Open Liberty, that's fine. I don't have any concern. I think a different runtime have different policies, because we kind of release this is a kind of beta, so it's a beta is kind of the that's fine to use the RCs.
Well, I mean, the for instance, another runtime. My main concern is, for instance, if you do the release on the RC for Central, then you're gonna have like all these updates on dependency bot on GitHub going wild. Then after a couple of hours, then you have another update on dependency bot for the final running wild as well, right? So it's not. I think that's also not a good user experience for people, right? Because if I see dependency bot like doing 2 updates like in quick succession, even if they are the same, I'm always going to get suspicious about it, thinking, why the hell are we going to having like 2 updates on the same artifact in just such a short succession? I usually become very fishy about that, meaning that maybe something like some bug was discovered, they're fixing something. That's usually my first thinking.
are you describing that users are going to be using the release during the vote and then get suspicious?
What I'm saying is, once you get something to Central, right? Dependency bot is going to check that, and usually is going to push an update to whatever user is using a version. It might be like a minor version. It might be like usually it's like a previous version of the artifact you're using, right? So dependencies bots are going to see the RC release is going to like push an update to your repository saying, here's a new version for this artifact. And then once you release the final, dependency bot's going to see the new final, and then it's going to push a new change to your repository saying, oh, here's a new version of the same artifact again.
I'm not aware. I don't have that dependency bot installed. The only one that I've ever seen is the one that points out vulnerabilities.
Yeah, but the dependencies bot is something on GitHub that like a lot of people are using. Usually what happens is it monitors changes or updates on Maven Central for artifacts, and then pushes the dependency update on the POM file or on the Gradle file to your repository. So when something new comes up, you don't have to update it manually. Dependency bot will push the pull request to you, and then you either accept it or not.
Yeah.
So what happens in that case is you'll get like 2 pull requests in a quick succession, about a particular version, or at least one version than the other.
Quick succession being 2 weeks later.
Yeah, and I know that we use that in our Liberty development process as well. But I mean, there has to be, some checks and balances as to which of these dependencies do you actually pick up. I mean, we get these Dependabot PRs. I mean, shoot, many of them daily, and they have to be analyzed. You can't just randomly accept all of them.
I know, what I'm saying is that I think it's not like a very good user experience for a user that's getting all of these updates, especially because the updates are not really meaningful. They don't get anything new. It's just like a technical thing that we have to do to circumvent the release process.
I don't know that we want to worry about it.
Yeah.
I think that's for the different runtime. I think if someone have concerns, maybe it's kind of all, I mean, related to the different runtime. I think as Kevin say, Open Liberty is fine. So we can do the beta release and etc. We can go from there. So basically, I will check the dates for the July. I think Piara line up for the end of July. So I think we can go from there.
Okay. So hopefully everything is captured properly here in the notes, right? So
no actual release. I don't see a word or a sentence that actually says no release. It says beta, but that is a soft. We need to say, my recommendation is for us to say in this thread, this space, 55 minutes or 50 minutes were spent on this discussion. We discover X and Y and then move on. Because if we don't acknowledge in this document, for someone that will not listen to the calls, recordings, and the minutes, it will not know that he or she, that actually a lot of thought was brought up and critical thinking finally came or arrived, even after the votes and all this stuff, things that were not discussed as they should have been. I think it's important for us to document it here.
I think we already discussed offline on the MicroProfile IO mailing list. I think, I think it's a kind of continue conversation there if needed. So, but for now, I think we kind of with all the conversation, etc., is the kind of the bottom line is kind of consume the RC and push a release out. So it's basically the so far the people agreed to the alpha beta or something like that.
And Rudy, you don't feel highlighted onto adjusting the internal work on the releases that Payara does under any circumstances, okay? Like, I just wanna ask you, do you feel that if you go and request, that it's not a request from MicroProfile to you in Payara? This is just like, the wording is, could we do it if it was not a RC or something like this? I just wanna make sure that we are clear here, that we're not highlighting into any member that they have to do the work for the release to happen. That is unfair, or would be unfair.
I think
So
that's a
Rudy,
very short way of saying no pressure.
yeah, Rudy, do you feel no pressure, correct?
Yeah, as I said, we have still a few tests which are failing for minor cases, but I have to check with everyone. So a lot of people, if we can do this, yes or no. So pressure or not, I cannot say anything if we are able to do it or not, and at which time frame.
Okay.
all right, so I think what I'm going to do here is I updated the minutes here, just saying we spent a lot of time on this topic, a lot of in-depth discussion. Basically, the release is on hold, is in the notes. Open Liberty RC or beta release is possible, available in early July. And I'm leaving it at that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So, Amelia, the specification process.
Oh, you skipped the MicroProfile 5.0.
Intentionally, just because we
Oh,
spent so
okay.
much time.
That's
Sorry
fine.
about that. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, just because we spent so much time on the releases.
Just say not discussed. Really, like just write a minute. Emily, write the minutes not discussed, so that we can the
Go
next
for
one.
it.
So we have 5 minutes to go. Let's be cute or snuggly here. If you have not voted for the community outreach on Tatiana, Ryan, and Emerson, that are contenders for the Eclipse 2021 community, say thank you to the people that you work with, please vote. The last day is on 28th. This has been going on the MicroProfile media. It has been sent to the community forum. And I think it's a way for us as a community to appreciate those that are doing some work. It's not to say that many of us are not doing the work. It's just that we can formally thank someone. So please vote. I mean, there is no excuse, and you only need to have the Eclipse email to log in and vote. No one will know what you said. Just choose from the mailing list. So please get that out. Don't procrastinate. Questions about that one? Wow, everyone is voting at the moment.
Thumbs up. Yep, voted.
Okay, so
Yep,
then
voted.
we're talking the specification process. It has Emily on board, and I didn't know where this document would go. And it's not under trademarks, actually, because even though it says trademarks, during the call that we had one-off for the marketing trademarks discussion, we had it 2 weeks ago on the 6/14th. We invited Paul to tell us a little bit more about the trademarks. And he created a spreadsheet that you can see here. Only the members that have access to the marketing working group, to the working group drive have edit access to this document. John, can you open please the document? This is important. The document needs to be maintained by those in the steering committee. And what we have in here is through the call, it took 1 hour, and Paul went and explained a bunch of things. And then many of us attending, not only Oracle, IBM, many, including individuals, were asking questions. What we did was to add the new row that says Git issues, because in MicroProfile, we use Git issues. And then there is an important side here, EF ongoing support. That is something that the working group, not the steering committee, but the working group needs to decide, because anything that is ongoing that talks about compatibility will need to be paid. It's not to say already the Eclipse Foundation does a review for any releases that happen under their umbrella. If you're a working group, they need to do the review, and they do it the first and third Wednesday, correct? So we don't pay for that. Well, it's included in the 12% fee, but we don't pay for that. But we need to work on these two items, trademarks maintenance and enforcement. And the amount has not been decided. Currently it's 10K and it's legal. So for this year it's saying 10K for management, but I'm not sure. We need to talk about it and ask the Eclipse Foundation. Then we have the administration of the branding and compatibility program. This one will be done by the working group. That means when a new member becomes compatible, that member gets added into the page, the compatible page, and all this stuff. If everyone remembers, the Jakarta side has a working team paid to do this. We don't want that. We want to do our own work via Git issues, and that is super simple. So we also have the specification, process, implementation, and administration. And that can fall also into the working group. So we, as a community, need to discuss the ongoing support, because whatever we decide not to do, we need to pay for. And this cannot be decided in this call. We should start different threads, and they need to be happening on the community forum for broader discussion, because we don't have not even 70 under the working group forum. So this is important document. Please see it, comment to it. If you're a member and you have edit access, don't change things without adding a comment, pulling in Paul so that he knows if you have any questions. But most importantly, use the forum, the marketing, the working group forum for this. that's it. We're out of time, but this document is very important because it will mean more costs if we decide that we don't want to do the work. And clearly you can see what we scratched, what we have done here, and the status. So, questions about this document? Because it talks that we said that we will tackle it as we do the releases. We're talking about releases, and this will be shaped on that. 12 o'clock, we're out of time.
Yeah, I guess I would just need to understand what it is of
Mhm.
line 27 and 28
Correct. We need to,
is there.
Mhm.
Right. So on the Jakarta side, we do have, or we did for a while have like Wayne issue the votes, and then we shifted to ourselves doing that.
Mhm.
So, you know, I don't know what work is imagined there.
My recommendation is,
I know for the branding program, I don't know if, you know, whether you call it administration or not, we do need to check with the EMO to make sure the person has signed the trademark agreement to use the logo before we go ahead and put their logo on the website. So
yes.
there's a touch point there.
Mhm. Apple said that that is easily checkable without extra payment. So it can be, they're happy to work with us on that with via Git issues. So we have established that kind of conversation. So that I see a few things that we can do ourselves. The thing is, my recommendation is for us, now that it has been presented, is for, I can submit the 3 different threads to the working group forum, and for every member to understand why those 3 emails exist. There will be this and the link, and say, what about X? And then everyone can ask questions, and we do it overriding, and it needs to be done formally on the working group. However, are we ready to go there, or can we just use this document, send it to the community, and then, you know, more broader things? Because this doesn't need to be now, right? We're very early, and I believe in buying us time as much as possible to gather as much information with many different minds.
So sorry, you know, just trying to manage the clock.
Yeah, we have to go.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to go. So, you know, if you want to start a thread in the Google group, I just want to give everyone a heads up. One thing I realized yesterday that I hadn't done yet was to send out a vote thread on the last steering committee call. So I started to kind of close issues on that. There's comments on it. So I will start that, if not today, tomorrow, start a thread to do that.
And we will vote within, like, we can close it on Friday. It's just to say +1s. I think Kevin did a really good job, and I tried to do my best to add stuff into it. So everyone here.
Yeah, I've started addressing those yesterday, and so I'll see if I can finalize that today and get it out. So apologies for that. All right, we're pretty much at the end of the meeting. Thanks everyone. I know it was kind of a single topic meeting today instead of the traditional status, but we need to figure out what's going on with 4.1. So thanks everyone. And next week is the technical call. So same bat time, same bat channel in 1 week for the technical call for those that are interested. Right. Thank you, everybody.
And Emerson, great job in the quotes and the tweets. Great. Bye.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks.